Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining my telephone town hall tonight. These calls are a great opportunity for us to have a productive, substantive conversation on topics of interest to you. While in D.C., these telephone town halls allow me to reach out to the greatest number of constituents at once, allowing me to listen to your concerns and answer your questions, and you all are able to participate right from your own home. If you have a question during the call, dial *3 at any time. For those of you just joining the call, this is Congressman Lee Zeldin. Thank you all for participating tonight. Listening to your questions and insight is such an important part of my job. Already this year, I've held events all across the district: Coffee with Your Congressman, Lunch with Lee, Pizza and Policy, mobile office hours from Smithtown to the East End. Those are just some of the many ways we've been able to interact. I've held numerous Facebook Live events and had hundreds of meetings with so many of you. If you would like to be notified of future coffees, lunches, mobile office hours, and other events in your area, please contact my office at 631-289-1097. During the call, if you want to ask me a question, directly press *3 at any time. Again, for anyone just joining the call, this is Congressman Lee Zeldin. Tonight we'll be discussing the issues that matter most to you, my work in Congress, and how it affects you. Since joining the House of Representatives, I've been working to advance my agenda to usher in a new era of American strength, protecting America's security at home and abroad, helping grow our economy and create more good-paying jobs, supporting our veterans and first responders, improving the quality of education and our nation's infrastructure and healthcare system, and safeguarding our environment. Above all else, I believe that keeping Americans safe, secure, and free must always be our top priority. For those of you who are just joining the call, this is Congressman Lee Zeldin, and if you want to ask any question during the call, press *3 at any time. Before we get into the questions for tonight, I want to pass along some contact information for my offices. Our main district office is located in Patchogue at 31 Oak Street, Suite 20. Our phone number is 631-289-1097. My East End office is located in Riverhead at 30 West Main Street, Suite 201. Our phone number for the East End office is 631-209-4235. Our Washington, D.C. office is located at 1517 Longworth House Office Building. Our phone number in the D.C. office is 202-225-3825. You can also visit my website at zeldin.house.gov. You can find all the office information there, and you can also email me directly. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Rep. Lee Zeldin, REPLEEZELDIN. And again, if you want to ask any question during this call or you have a comment, press *3. So we'll get started and bring on our first phone call. It's from Michael. Michael, can you hear?
Yeah, Lee.
Hey, Michael.
Yes, how you doing, Lee Zeldin?
Hey, thanks for joining the call.
Thank you. I didn't expect to be first. You threw me off. I wanted to thank you and your office, first of all, for helping me with my Second Amendment issue with Brookhaven, Yacht Bank office. I was a vet, and I was running into problems with documentation, and it took a couple of years, but you guys stepped in and fixed it quick. And that's another reason why I voted for you, because you're Second Amendment, pro-Second Amendment. My question really is, I was very, very disturbed. I did vote for Trump, but I was very disturbed when he said what he said as far as due process comes after. Due process is first, when it came him referencing our Second Amendment rights and taking guns away from people that may be perceived as not having any business in having them. But that doesn't come from an officer in the law, with all due respect. That comes from the judicial system. And I wanted to be assured that you would do your part to remind our president that due process does not come second.
Yeah, well, Michael, I totally agree with you. Due process is incredibly important. And as you're asking the question, was thinking about the debate over no fly, no buy. I mean, I have there are 535 members of Congress, and I don't know a member of Congress who's in favor of a terrorist being able to purchase a firearm or explosive. But one of the main proposal that was getting pushed when my colleagues were saying no fly, no buy was a proposal that would make the purchaser have to prove that they are not a terrorist, as opposed to having a process in place where a purchaser is given notice and a hearing and right to counsel, and there is due process, and the burden is on the government to show that someone is a known or suspected terrorist. So the due process is incredibly important. There was a debate that took place about a year ago because there was an 11th hour regulation that was imposed at the very end of the Obama administration, where essentially anyone who had a designated payee for Social Security, like if you have someone else designated to be a payee for your Social Security benefit, that you would lose your Second Amendment rights based off of that. Now, the defenders of that would say, and many of them still to this day say, that was a proposal to make sure that the mentally ill don't purchase firearms. It wasn't specific to the mentally ill. It was that anyone who was a payee, who had a designated payee, someone else, a loved one, a kid, a friend, for their Social Security benefit, that doesn't mean that you're mentally ill and all of a sudden you should lose your Second Amendment rights. So it's important that we're doing what we need to do, smart policy to keep people safe. There were so many balls that were dropped in Parkland at different levels of government. The system that's currently in place just not working. And people who are saying Nicholas Cruz should not have had access to a particular kind of firearm. I'll say a guy who shows, and I don't care if he's 19 or 89, anyone who is showing all those threats and indicators, they should not have access to any firearm. I mean, Cruz was very clear in specifically stating that he was manifesting all the intention of murdering with his firearm.
Yes.
So, in that particular case, when you're manifesting an intent to murder with your firearm, you should have access to none. Rules are already on the books that could have prevented it. Law enforcement needs to work together, and that could have been prevented. So those are a few thoughts, though, about, going back to the original point about due process, it's incredibly important, so important, and I do strongly support individuals' Second Amendment rights to be able to protect themselves, their loved ones. That's very important. So, by the way, I wanted to give a shout out. We have a Miss Kelsch's Hampton Bays High School class is on the line, giving extra credit for being on participating in tonight's Teletown Hall. So thank you to Miss Kelsch and all of the high school students who are on board with tonight's call. So again, anyone has any calls, any questions throughout the call, just press star 3 at any time. So we're going to bring in Dan. Hello, Dan.
Hi, Lee. How are you?
Hey, good. How are you?
Doing good. I wanted to ask how you can help to rid the Bellport High School of MS-13. We know that there is a presence there. They did an awesome job in Central Islip engaging the police and all the different resources, and we need the help also here in Bellport. I don't know.
Well, yeah, the MS-13 issue is a huge issue locally, nationally. It's been a big focus of the Trump administration. The president, as you know, has been to Suffolk. A.G. Sessions has been to Suffolk. The U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District has brought charges against many. It's a product of working with local law enforcement, whether it's the Suffolk Police, the detectives, the DA, all levels of government working together to crack down on MS-13. Part of this has to do with that coordination that goes on between different agencies working well together. Part of it has to do with our immigration policies, where, for example, we set up a kid for failure when they come as an unaccompanied minor. Their parent turns them over for a dangerous mission to the United States. When they get here, they are sent to, they can be sent to a foster family in an area that might have the most amount of transiency, the lowest graduation rate, the higher amount of gang recruitment. So the unaccompanied minor program, for example, that's just one example of where we're setting up kids for failure, and we've seen multiple examples on Long Island where people have ended up inside of MS-13. It's also the specific crimes need to be cracked down on: drug trafficking, sex trafficking, the human trafficking aspect of it goes on right here on the island. So that is an important aspect. I introduced a bill. This is just one of many different things that need to get done, but we are seeing people who are applying, they are receiving naturalization in the United States, and then they're committing crimes as gang members. I believe that they should lose their naturalization if they are gang members, but that's just me. I feel strongly about that. I introduced a bill called the Protecting Our Communities from Gang Violence Act, H.R. 5065. That's one bill. So I'm going to continue to work with all the different interagencies, whether it's appropriations in Congress, immigration, bills that are getting passed to fix our broken immigration system. Anything I could do at all to help is really important. So thanks for asking about MS-13. It's a really important issue, and again, anyone who wants to participate in tonight's call, just press *3. And now we're going to bring Nora on. Hello, Nora.
Yeah, hi, Lee. How you doing? This is Nora Higgins from New York State Public Employees Federation, and I'm a nurse at Suffolk Hospital. In regards to the opioid epidemic, I realize that lots of funding keeps being, funneled toward this crisis, and I see that the police are arresting more and more of the drug dealers and things of that nature. I'm not seeing in the hospital setting that the people themselves who are taking the drugs, who are addicted, are actually getting the help that they need. And again, I work in the neonatal intensive care at Stony Brook, and mothers, we've lost several mothers this year who were inpatient and stopped using for a short while, went back out on the street and overdosed, leaving the children orphaned. So I'm just, I don't see that there's actually treatment centers that are available. There's long waiting lists for people who are in need, and I'm just wondering if there are any plans to build facilities that people can actually get the treatment they need in a timely fashion before they die.
Well, thanks for what you do for helping everyone in need, and very close to my heart, the effort at the NICU in Stony Brook. My daughters were born in the NICU down in Georgetown, and I had a meeting today I had four former 3- and 4-star generals, and we were talking about the future of diplomacy and the military and foreign affairs. And I expressed to them that the number one issue that we have in Congress with our federal government, the one mandatory function constitutionally, is to provide for a common defense. And even though this wasn't part of the meeting, I said, but if you really wanted to ask me about it a little bit further, I would say combating the heroin and opioid abuse epidemic is getting pretty close. And I've personally been to way too many wakes, and going to just one is too many, but I've been to way too many wakes. The top priority last Congress was passing the Comprehensive Addiction and Recovery Act, otherwise known as CARA. I was a co-sponsor of it, did multiple press conferences to push it. We got it passed, signed into law, which is great. And now CARA being law, we have to make sure that it is properly funded every year as we're going through the appropriations process. It is very important to get people help. If you save them, we're a lot of focus on Narcan, for example. As I'm sure you're very familiar with, Narcan can reverse an overdose within minutes. but if you're not getting that person the help that they need, they could go right back to using. Going back to the time when I was in the state Senate, I helped pass something called iStop in New York State to try to bring up the 21st, which, by the way, has, it certainly can benefit from further improvements, but it was something to crack down on doctor shopping, and also we're seeing issues in pharmacies. There are federal investigations into pharmacies as well. But a doctor wants to help someone with, try to save money on a copay, so you give them 90 days worth of a prescription instead of 30, and the medicine cabinets getting completely filled up with all different kinds of different medications and staying there. You have unwanted, expired, unused medication that ends up sitting in a medicine cabinet, and that's one of the ways that we have our kids and others start using. I also have co-sponsored, I've hosted these Shed the Meds events where people can get rid of their unwanted, expired, unused medication. We have to get people, working with the insurance companies. It's very important that individuals are able to get the help that they need. The insurance companies aren't just kicking someone out in the street or giving them a certain standard of care that isn't going to help them actually recover. OASIS enforcement at the state level, because you have sober homes and other locations where individuals go for help, and the quality there is not at an acceptable minimal standard. So someone goes into a local home for help to get out of what they're going through, and while they're there, they're actually surrounded in an environment that makes it even worse for using. So, I think increasing the standard and enforcement of sober homes are important. I mean, the list could go on. I mean, I've met with DEA, FBI, where they're talking about just internationally the illegal substances that come across our country, come into our country from international. They need more tools in order to be able to crack down on it. Where you're talking about the international aspect, many times when we talk about border security or people entering our country, what often gets lost in that is this is also illegal substances as well. So those are just many different thoughts that come to mind. Just briefly recapping, it's making sure that CARA is funded, that law enforcement has some of the tools that they're asking for, better increasing the standards and effectiveness of sober homes, getting insurance companies to make sure that people are getting to the beds they need for the time necessary, and the further implementation of iStop and improving on whatever needs to get improved, but cutting down on doctor shopping and cracking down on pharmacies that aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. And there is a heroin and opioid abuse epidemic in this country that needs to be dealt with. But thanks for raising an important question, and thank you again for what you do at the local NICU. So we have poll questions. We're going to have poll questions throughout tonight's call. So after our next caller, we'll get started with our first poll question of the night. Again, thank you everyone participating. If you have any questions, just dial *3 at any time. And we're going to bring Joe.
Good evening, Congressman Zeldin. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing okay. I am a full-time commercial and party charter boat fisherman out of Santa Mauritius, New York. And we've been in and out of your office in Patchogue, myself and a group of the other fishermen and guys that make a living fishing on Mauritius Bay over the last few years, trying to get something done with the dredging of Mauritius Inlet. And with these last three bad nor'easters in March, the inlet has just about closed itself off. There's pictures of it up all over on Facebook and all over social media online, with sand pretty much filling up just about half of the inlet between the jetties, and a tremendous bar on the outside preventing boats from transiting in and out of the inlet. And with the good part of the season coming up, there's 8 full-time fishermen in Mauritius, 3 party charter boats. There's over 10 marinas, bait, tackle shops, and it looks like we're going to have a very tough season and may even be heading towards going out of business due to the lack of maintenance and the need for dredging in Murch's Inlet. And we're just trying to find out what can be done, if there's any emergency action that can be taken to clear the inlet and allow us to go back to work.
Yeah, and I appreciate you raising it here on the call. It's all over my radar. As a matter of fact, earlier today we sent a request into the Army Corps of Engineers where I am personally asking for an emergency dredge to be done of Murch's Inlet. I've seen the pictures. We forwarded the pictures. I'm meeting actually tomorrow in my D.C. office with Colonel Asbury, who is in charge of the Army Corps of Engineers for our entire region. So I'm going to be raising this issue with him when we meet. I am very familiar with Murch's Inlet. It's a situation that really, I grew up on the Massachusetts Peninsula. I've been familiar with this inlet since I was 5 or 6 years old. I know that there's been a long history of it being difficult navigating inside of the bay, navigating inside the inlet, especially if you're not timing it right with tides coming in and out. But the situation right now is just, it's ridiculous. You can't even compare it to anything in the past, which I believe that there's just by looking at the pictures of what's going on there, it makes an incredibly strong argument as to why there needs to be an emergency dredge. Now, the first response that we got today was that there isn't funding for it. I am really happy that it just so happens I have my meeting with Colonel Asbury tomorrow because I'm going to raise it as a really important, imperative issue for them to go out to see for themselves. We're also reaching out to the local Coast Guard because in this situation, it's not just an Army Corps issue because of the need for the dredging, but it's also a navigational issue, so hopefully the Coast Guard can weigh in support too. I know we had a meeting scheduled that ended up right when that storm, one of the nor'easters ended up hitting, so I know that my Patchogue office is trying to reschedule the Murch's Inlet meeting. Hopefully we have Army Corps representatives there, but I want to really get an answer tomorrow if at all possible. But I really appreciate you bringing it up here. Thanks for your advocacy on social media. Keep sending the pictures to me. It helps for me to be able to forward all of those pictures, all of your information into the Army Corps, to the Coast Guard, because they'll be seeing whatever you're seeing in real time. So thanks again, Joe. Let's work together on it. And please stay in touch with my Patchogue office on it, and hopefully we'll be able to make some progress when I talk to the Army Corps tomorrow. All right, so we're going to have our first poll question of the night. We have a few of them, but the first one of the night is, which issue is most important to you? So I'm going to read off a bunch of options with keys 1 through 9 and even 0. But I'll read through the list twice. The question is, which issues are most important to you? Press 1 for economy or jobs. Press 2 for foreign affairs or terrorism. Press 3 for taxes. 4 for infrastructure. 5 for immigration or border security. 6 for healthcare. 7 for veterans. 8 for the environment. 9 for spending or debt. Or 0 for education. Which issue is most important to you? Press 1 for economy or jobs, 2 for foreign affairs or terrorism, 3 for taxes, 4 for infrastructure, 5 for immigration or border security, 6 for healthcare, 7 veterans, 8 environment, 9 spending or debt, or 0 for education. So we'll look forward to, thanks for everybody for participating, and I look forward to checking out the results. And we'll keep on going through the callers and bring in Virginia. Hello, Virginia.
Hi, Lee. I just had a quick question about infrastructure. I just wanted to ask if you had spoken to the administration and advocated for some of the transportation needs we face on Long Island. To stay economically strong, transportation is pretty vital. So with New York City instituting congestion pricing, we don't have a lot of ways off the island. So I was just wondering if you had spoken to them about extending the runways at Macarthur or a bridge or tunnel to Connecticut or New York.
Yeah, I actually just had the first part is off of Long Island, but important for our region. I just had a meeting a couple hours ago with the speaker in the New York and New Jersey delegation with regards to the Gateway project, which is a really important project for our region. You have these aging tunnels that, if you look at the Northeast Corridor and the cell lines of Amtrak, those are the only two profitable routes of the entire Amtrak system nationally. The project needs to get done, and there's a little bit of a battle going on right now between the House, the Senate, and the White House. So we're going to keep working through that. On Long Island, closer to home, I have one of the things that we did, I introduced something called the Safe Bridges Act, which was added to an infrastructure bill, which changes the federal formula in order to get money for our state and local bridges. So what had happened in maybe 2011 or 2012, the federal government passed an infrastructure bill where no longer would we be receiving money for state or local bridges, which would have the effect of $250 million less money for New York's state and local bridges. But we have just under 100 functionally obsolete and structurally deficient bridges just in the First Congressional District. We were able to secure $26 million for the Hospital Road Bridge to revitalize and widen the bridge. That project's 80% federally funded. So that's important from the bridge standpoint. As far as Macarthur goes, right now we got the need for an international customs station if we're able to add international flights. We have gotten funding for runways throughout the district, throughout Suffolk County. That funding is there. As far as Macarthur goes, it's going to be. I mean, if they were to, they should have really put the terminal on the north side where it would have been right next to the tracks, where JFK, you can take a train to JFK. At Macarthur Airport, you can take a train and then you have to get in a cab in order to get to the terminal, where if they built the terminal on the other side, that would have helped out. I know that Islip Town has been working hard for years in trying to get additional planes to fly out of Macarthur. They have Frontier Airlines there, and you'll see where the future is of Islip Airport. As far as there being a tunnel or a bridge between Long Island and Connecticut that should have gotten done a long time ago, it would have been a heck of a lot cheaper to do it then than it is now. And we, at the point now, it would be great if there was a way for us to get from Long Island to Connecticut. There's going to be people who will complain about it, especially if you put it in one place or another that might be far worse than some of the alternatives. There is NIMBYism going on all across Long Island. People would love to have a tunnel or bridge getting connected to somewhere other than their neighborhood. The infrastructure has to support it. But those are a few thoughts that come to mind. I would certainly love to see. I would really wish that it had happened a long time ago. That's why 135 ends abruptly the way it does, is because it was supposed to go to Connecticut. Those are a few thoughts. We also have federal money that has come to help the efforts to connect the railroad into Manhattan. Second Avenue subway. When I was in the state Senate, getting money for the second track between Ronkonkoma and Farmingdale, that was big too. So a lot of different infrastructure projects and conversations have taken place since I first got into the state Senate. But thanks for the question, And we'll go to the second poll question, which is, do you approve of the job I am doing in Congress? Do you approve of the job I am doing in Congress? Press 1 for yes, 2 for no, or 3 undecided. Do you approve of the job I am doing in Congress? Press 1 for yes, 2 for no, or 3 for undecided. And as you're answering, we'll go on to the next question, and we'll look forward to being able to fill everyone in on the results of our few different poll questions as we go along. So next we'll bring in Francis. Hello, Francis.
This is James. I'm Francis' husband.
Okay. It sounds like we got that with the last caller too. I said Virginia, and then I heard a male's voice. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm calling because of the shooting down in Florida and all this criticism of the NRA. The NRA had nothing to do with this shooting. They were all about gun safety. But what I'd like to know is, we keep hearing about how many people dropped the ball and that this could have been prevented, but I don't hear about anybody being held accountable for it. And what's being done to hold people accountable so that this doesn't happen again?
Yeah, there are a lot of balls dropped with the law enforcement, and there was a great Sunday morning interview with Jake Tapper, the Broward County Sheriff. It was like a 28, 29-minute interview. That sheriff needs to resign. There are so many other examples all across our entire country where there was a situation to deal with, to respond to, where trained law enforcement have their instincts, their training, their courage kick in, and they resolve the situation and they keep people safe. I saw it where Steve Scalise ended up getting shot, but if not for the heroism and the good work of the Capitol police officers who engaged with their firearms, they were using pistols against a much more lethal weapon targeting them. If not for their heroism, there would have been 24 more members of Congress and staffers who were there as well, because they were trapped inside of the ball field. So as far as accountability goes in Broward County, you saw the school resource officer resign, but there needs to be a thorough but swift investigation and accountability with regards to any of those deputy sheriffs, and especially the main sheriff of Broward County. He shouldn't be there. And when he was put on the spot by Jake Tapper during that interview about whether or not he should resign, he started praising his own leadership. So completely tone deaf. It doesn't even seem like he's going to learn the lessons of what had happened to prevent it from happening again. And as far as the FBI goes, it's really important and Congress has an oversight function to figure out exactly what was shared, where the ball was dropped, and not just lessons learned, but if wherever necessary for there to be accountability at all levels of government, because law enforcement at all levels of government ended up failing. And there are a lot of great people in law enforcement who are there because they love their country, their community. They're there for all the right reasons. They want to do the right thing. But there was a lot of failure and incompetency in this particular situation. Ended up costing precious young lives their future. Their lives, their family, their community ended up getting devastated by that conduct. So there certainly needs to be accountability. I completely agree with you, and law enforcement actually had all of the resources it needed to prevent Parkland from even happening in the first place. So thanks for your question. And as we go through the poll questions, we'll also fill you in on the results. So like the first question that we asked, which issue is most important to you? The top was immigration or border security at 32%. Number 2 was taxes at 13%. Healthcare was 11%. Economy or jobs, 9%. Environment, 7%. spending or debt 6, education 6, veterans 6, infrastructure 6, foreign affairs or terrorism 5. And I just asked, do you approve of the job I'm doing in Congress? 62% of you said yes, 17% said no, 21% said undecided. And before we bring on our next caller, and thank you everybody for participating, the next poll question is, do you believe our country is on the right track or wrong track? Press 1 for right track, press 2 for wrong track. Do you believe our country is on the right track or the wrong track? Press 1 for right track or 2 for wrong track. Now, we also have some questions that are coming in online. So throughout the call, we have a couple of questions that came in with regards to the shooting that we just discussed. Max asks, what are your opinions on Long Island and America's youth taking charge on gun control reform? Lindsay says, hi, I'm Lindsay Haynes from Hampton Bays High School, and I was wondering what your thoughts are on the recent school shootings and your plans regarding school safety. So thank you to Max and Lindsay for asking your questions online. That is very cool of you to be participating that way. We actually just had a bill pass on the floor today, and it's called the Stop School Violence Act. If you want to look it up online, it's H.R. 4909, Stop School Violence Act. And I'll give you a little bit of background. So the House just passed this a couple hours ago. Helps school personnel and law enforcement personnel identify and prevent violence in schools. Authorizes $500 million for state-based grants administered by the DOJ to support evidence-based violence prevention programs in every middle and high school across the country. These grants support a range of proactive strategies for identifying and preventing school-targeted violence, including evidence-based training, anonymous reporting systems, threat assessments, intervention teams, and increased coordination between schools and local law enforcement. So trained school personnel, local law enforcement, students will be able to better identify warning signs and intervene to stop violence and suicide, to develop and implement these anonymous reporting systems for threats of school violence in coordination with local law enforcement, and to train and operate school threat assessment and intervention teams to preemptively triage threats before tragedy hits. So the programs, they provide grant support and it will provide important, significant improvements to school security. Again, Parkland could have totally have been prevented with the laws on the books, but whatever we can do, all levels of government, in our local communities, our schools, what our schools do to help secure schools are very important. So everyone has an important role to play here in order to learn lessons. I mean, my background's the military. That's one of the great things about our military is something we do called after action reports. Learning our lessons from what happened to prevent tragedy again. And we also have to do a better job enforcing the laws that are already on the books. I remember one year where the Department of Justice had over 80,000 attempted illegal purchases of firearms. And in that year, the DOJ only prosecuted 41 of them. That's the laws that are already on the books. I think it's really good. To Max's question, what are your opinions on Long Island and America's youth taking charge on gun control reform? I think it's great when people are inspired to be involved. We have high school students on tonight's call. Get involved in government, advocate on causes that you believe passionately on. I would say it's best when you're able to do all of your homework on the issue, get smart, so you're able to debate and effectively advocate, to convince people to think the way that you think, but also be open-minded in hearing why there may be disagreement. Because I would say on this issue, what happens too much, you have people who talk past each other and not to each other. I remember having one room where there was 7 people in the room. This was just a couple weeks ago. There's 7 people in the room who all wanted to talk about guns, and they all wanted to see new laws get passed. And 4 of the people in the room would, they would ask a question, and they would want to hear the answer, and they would want to engage in a productive conversation, not talking past each other, but to each other, to try to find common ground. But then there were other people in the room who were actually trying to use the issue as a political wedge, where they just didn't want to hear anything that I had to say. They just wanted to, just kind of heckle. And that's just not the right way to make progress on any issue that you're passionate about. It's really disingenuous. It's greatly unfortunate as well. But we just we're going to ask you the 4th poll question. So we have 5 poll questions on the call. The 4th question is: do you approve of the job that President Trump is doing? Press 1 for yes, press 2 for no, or 3 for undecided. Do you approve of the job that President Trump is doing? Press 1 for yes, 2 for no, or press 3 for undecided. And we'll go to our next caller in the meantime while you're answering. It's Michael. Hello, Michael.
Hi, good evening, Congressman Zeldin. How are you?
Great, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. I guess first and foremost, I just want to thank you for representing our district with class. I appreciate that. My question is regarding the gridlock in Washington. I believe that the biggest threat to our country is the unproductivity coming out of Washington. I know that you recently sponsored 2 bipartisan bills regarding the living will and the severely disabled vet, so I applaud you for that. I'm just curious, what would be your advice to your fellow congressmen to work across the aisle, and what efforts do you plan on undertaking to continue doing that in the future?
Well, I'll tell you, there is partisanship in Washington, and there are also things that get done in Washington. With regards to the partisanship, I mean, it's real. It happens, and especially as you get closer to an election, you'll see more partisanship, not less. But what's been really interesting, what I've done a few times is I'll be in a room, and this particular conversation is taking place, and I'll ask, on my first term, the 114th Congress, 2015 and 2016, I'll say, take a guess how many bills, and everyone who's on this call, you can all answer this question to yourself when I ask. How many bills would you say were passed in the 114th Congress, Republican Congress, and were signed by a Democratic president? And the answer that I get most often is 0. People, by the way, will very confidently say 0. Now, the answer was actually over 350. And these included bills that reauthorized the Zadroga Act to overhaul sustainable growth rate to prevent increases to Medicare, a 5-year fully funded highway bill, and education reauthorization. I mean, there were real substantive bills. I mean, in that mix, you also have bills that rename post offices, which is an important tribute for for that veteran who's getting a post office renamed after them. But there are also huge, nationally significant bills that got passed. The Zadroga Act, for example, everybody was talking about the Zadroga Act when the partisan bickering was preventing it from getting passed. And then when it actually got passed, it wasn't news. If you were to turn on the national news right now, I have no idea what's on Fox, CNN, and MSNBC as I'm saying this. But there's a good chance that it's not a positive story. It's possible. I mean, I'm not saying that's what happens 100% of the time, but I wish it sold more when people were able, if media was telling us about what good was happening in our government. So I will co-sign op-eds with Democrats, and I will co-sponsor bills with Democrats, and we'll do press conferences together. We'll sign appropriation letter requests where I signed an op-ed with Grace Meng on giving our surplus bunker buster bombs to Israel. I led a letter to get money for Sea Grant, which was successful in fully funding Sea Grant last year, which is really important, especially for a coastal economy like what we have. My adult day health care bill actually passed the House yesterday and is going to President Trump for his signature. That was a product of Republicans and Democrats working together on the House Veterans Affairs Committee and House and the Senate. So, we need to have more bipartisan agreement where common ground can be found. That doesn't mean that that we're gonna. This isn't utopia where you're going to get 535 people to be unanimous on an appropriations bill. I mean, people are going to be unhappy if you're passing a bill to fund the government, for example. There's going to be disagreement, but you always have to be trying to, in good faith, pursue common ground however possible. Some people are unreasonable. They believe that the only version of compromise that's acceptable is when they get their way 100% of the time. That really isn't compromise, and that person needs to do some self-reflection. But I will say there is too much partisanship, but it's not total. And whatever we can do to make progress is really important. But great question, great comments. So thank you. And I'll give you the answers to question 3 and 4. Question 3 was, do you believe our country is on the right track or wrong track? 62% said right track and 38% said wrong track. Do you approve of the job that President Trump is doing? 63% said yes, 30% said no, 7% said undecided. So again, thanks to everybody for participating. And one more shout out to Ms. Kelsch's Hampton Bays High School class for being on the call. I think that's a great idea for future teletown halls to get more participation from our great high school students from all across the district. So great idea there in the Hampton Bays School District. Our last poll question of the night is, would you like to sign up to receive email newsletters from my office? So it's just one option. If the answer is yes, if you'd like to sign up to receive email newsletters from my office, press 1. If you press 1, you'd be choosing to sign up to receive the updates that my office sends out over email to stay connected with what's going on in our country, in Congress, and locally. So we're just gonna keep answering questions as they come in. The next one is Frank.
Yes, hello, Congressman Zeldin.
Yes, sir. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well. I just wanted to give you a little recommendation if you're going to be walking across the aisle to shake hands with the Democrats, that you might want to get your Army fatigues on and your helmet before you do that.
Yeah, I'll tell you, there are some really good members on the other side of the aisle, and there are some other members who are impossible to work with. And I'm also not going to suggest that even everyone on my own side of the aisle is perfect to work with. There are reasonable people on both sides, and I mentioned that leading the effort with Joe Courtney of Connecticut. There's a lot that I disagree with Joe Courtney on. I mean, we vote on the opposite side of a whole bunch of issues. But that doesn't mean that where my district borders the Long Island Sound and his district borders the Long Island Sound, that we can't work on an important issue for Long Island Sound. So some people, they just refuse to talk to the other side. I'd say where you can find allies, you can find common ground where you're best representing your constituents. Go for it. I'm all for it.
Congressman.
Yes, sir.
I just meant that as kind of just to be funny, but my real question had to do with immigration, illegal immigration specifically.
Sure.
Just nationally, obviously, I think there needs to be some support of President Trump in really stopping illegal immigration. And locally, what I was concerned about locally is that My understanding is that there are many areas in Long Island and probably in your congressional district that support sanctuary status in sanctuary cities, and also there may be illegal immigrants in my community here, and maybe some of their children are going to the school districts in Smithtown, and taxpayers are bearing the burden for that. And I think mayors and governors and university presidents that support sanctuary cities and sanctuary status is a blatant disregard of federal law, and something needs to be done about this, and they need to be prosecuted.
Yeah, I'm with you. We saw what happened in Oakland, where the mayor ends up giving notice to all of these, public notice to everybody, where ICE was about to perform a raid, where you're putting those great ICE agents into danger for their own physical safety when you're telling people who they're about to do the raid on that ICE is coming to be able to, in order to enforce a detainer order, or whatever other action it is that is leading an ICE agent to come to their house. In Denver, you had a situation where someone who is in our country illegally is involved in a fatal hit and run about a week ago, just over a week ago. Flees the scene, and someone ends up dying as a result of that accident. Denver, so the ICE puts out a detainer order. They put out a request for notification, and then days later, Denver releases this person, this illegal immigrant, and then 65 minutes later, not beforehand, but 65 minutes after the release, they tell ICE that they've released this person. The sanctuary city policies that we see around our country are so wrong. The federal government is responsible for creating immigration law in this country, and where you have local politicians pandering for votes and refusing to assist, where different levels of government should be working together in order to crack down on illegal immigration, you're putting our great law enforcement officers at risk. You are making a broken immigration system even more broken than it was before. I have colleagues who celebrate illegal immigration. They want to reward illegal immigration as opposed to stopping it. So as the president has mentioned, his desire to find a permanent solution with regards to DACA, he has said that we have to at the same time tackle other aspects here, because if not, you'll end up actually increasing the amount of legal immigration, whether it's intentional or unintentional. And I agree that we have a broken immigration system, that border security is part of it, interior enforcement, certain rules have to change, and that we all should be working together to try to get it done. So, I appreciate your question, an important one. It sounds like you and I are on the same page with. Yep, we'll bring in Rose. Hello, Rose.
Hello. The fishing industry will be devastated when Trump's donors' oil rigs get built and are pumping, catching fire and collapsing. Are you in favor of the offshore drilling that Trump wants all along the coastline, with the exception of Florida because Mar-a-Lago is there?
Well, I appreciate the question. I just hosted an offshore drilling hearing with the Department of Interior a couple weeks ago. Really well attended, hundreds of locals showing up to voice their opposition. I don't support this proposal that would allow offshore drilling off the coast of Long Island. It's really important to note that it isn't even known that we even have oil and gas resources off of our coast. So the danger that can be caused just searching for something that doesn't even exist off of our coast, that's one of the reasons why I have been working closely with my friend Ryan Zinke, trying to get him to listen to my concerns and those locally here on the island, because I've heard it from everybody. Really, it's Republicans and Democrats, environmentalists, business leaders, local elected officials. Everyone seems to be on the same page that there needs to be a change made in the next draft of this proposal. And I feel strongly that that needs to get done. I'm hoping that the next draft towards the end of the year incorporates the request that's being made by Long Islanders. I'm hoping that our concerns are being heard. I want to say that they are, but until I actually see a draft that make the changes that we're advocating for, just got to keep on fighting. And thank you. If anyone on this call participated in that offshore drilling hearing that took place, it was really well attended, so thank you. And we're going to bring in Anthony. Hello, Anthony.
Yes, hello, Lee.
Sure.
How are you? Hang on a second, please. I just got to turn the volume up.
Sure.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you and I go back a long ways. I used to be the Chamber of Commerce president for Mystic Shirley.
Oh, okay.
About 45 years ago when you ran, we brought you in to
I
have
remember.
you speak at
What was that? The old Latican site?
Yep.
Yep. Okay,
That's
I remember.
the one. Yeah. One of the things, you had posted something on Manorville in 213 or 215, that the Manorville would have the stuff for us to do our x-rays and stuff. I'm 80 years old now. And for me to drive all the way to Northport, it's a 3.5-hour ride on Long Island. And I can't imagine what the people out east do. So I haven't made it in there now in over a month, and I got to get things done, and I have to have x-rays and stuff done. And I thought that was the place that you had decided in Manorville and Peconic Bay Hospital.
Yeah, so well, I'll say a few things. One is we can personally work with you directly to get you whatever assistance at all is available. For example, I have someone in my Patchogue office, Cleveland Johnson, who is full-time just working on veterans constituent work. The Peconic Bay Medical Center has a site in Manorville that's part of the VA Choice program, that veterans go there to receive a whole host of different services that they otherwise would have to go to Northport in order to receive. So what we'll do is I'll make sure, I'm just making a note, we'll make sure to reach out to you separately, independent of the call, to work with you to get you set up. I would just also add that something that the VA has been working on is expanding something called CBOX, where they have other sites throughout Long Island that would be more convenient than going all the way to Northport, especially as they expand their CBOC to have new services. That is even more of a reason why you'd be able to go to, we have one location in Riverhead, for example. We have one location in Patchogue as another example. There are others all throughout Long Island. So the CBOX they do provide another opportunity for you. So I'm going to have someone from my office call you separately to make sure we get you set up. And very importantly, thank you for your service as a veteran of our country.
One more question along with that. We have the choice availability, all right? But you got to go to the VA. We'll go through the VA to get a choice card. I have a full choice. I have a choice card, but suggestion was made that people should ask their doctors if they accept choice and start letting them understand that maybe they get a whole lot more customers. And there should be one choice card, and we can make the calls to find out if they accept choice or not. If we can't find out, then we'll call there and have them suggest something.
Yeah, well, and I am supportive of a veteran being able to bring their VA benefit to any provider they wish. I feel like veteran served our country, you've earned that VA benefit, if you want to go to, say, the Northport VA to get your services, God bless you. When you go, you should have the highest standard of care, quality of service possible. If you, for whatever reason, don't want to, maybe you live in Montauk, maybe you live in Orient, maybe it's going to be a full-day trip, service, then you should be able to go to a provider near Montauk or near Orient Point and not even have to go all the way to a CBOC.
I think Trump also had suggested that now happening too. What you just said.
Yeah, that's there is a possibility. I mean, depending on what news story we're watching, you could say it's a good possibility, but I just don't know to confirm independently. But it seems like he might be making a change over in that position for Secretary of Veterans Affairs. I have heard different names get mentioned. One of the names, Pete Hegseth, is someone I've known for a very long time. Pete and I were doing veterans events together over a decade ago. He is not just a vet himself, but passionate on these issues. I don't want to speak for Pete, but I feel confident that if he was the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, that he would support the idea of a veteran being able to take their VA benefit to any location that they wish. So yeah, thank you again for your service and those great points. Now, so what we do throughout the year with these teletown halls provide a great opportunity for me. I'm here in Washington D.C. I'm having this call from my office, Longworth House office building. And all of you are hopefully in the comfort of your own homes participating, asking questions. I try to get to as many questions as we can during the 1 hour that we have together. But on top of that, at the end of the call, because we have a ton of more questions in queue, what you could do is leave a message. If you stay on the line, you can leave a message, and we get back to every one of you. You can also call my office with any questions at 631-289-1097. So any of you who haven't had the opportunity to ask your question or state your comment, if you stay on the line, you can leave a message. We get back to every one of you. You can also call. I really appreciate all of you participating in tonight's telephone town hall. It is an honor to be able to represent all of you in our nation's capital. We have the greatest congressional district in the country. I really do believe that. We live in the greatest country in the world, and it is such a great privilege to represent each and every one of you. So have a great night. Please stay on the line to leave a message if you want us to get back to you. Stay in touch. We also, let us know if you want to participate in a coffee with your congressman, lunch with Lee, pizza and policy, mobile office hours. You could schedule a meeting with me separately in the office. We do a lot of different things. Facebook Live, if you're on Facebook. So you can follow me on social media and you can participate in our next Facebook Live. But let our office know if you want to be kept informed of that in the future, and we will keep you posted. So thanks again. Thank you for the honor of representing our great congressional district, and we'll speak soon.